Hey everyone, we'll get started in just a sec. We'll let everyone roll in. My name's Connor. I head partnerships here at Koyfin and do a bit of product work. To the left or the right of me is Rob, founder, CEO of Koyfin. He'll be here. I'll be presenting. If you have any questions that you want to ask during the webinar, there's a little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen there. Feel free to ask those and Rob will get back to you. If he thinks that they would be interesting to walk through in the webinar, he'll save those for me at the end as well. We'll get started in just a couple seconds. Cool. So just while we're waiting on a few extra folks rolling in, the crux of what we're going to be covering here is taking you from, I guess, 0 to 1 in charting in Koyfin. For some of you that are used to Koyfin charts, the first 5 or 10 minutes or so might be repetitive, but we'll quickly scale into some more advanced stuff. We're going to be breaking down the basics, then we'll kind of migrate into some more advanced functionality, showing you what you can do with all the data that we have in Koyfin charts. Then we're going to walk through some examples and show you how you can tie these charts that you're creating into things like templates, and then also drag them around the other areas of the platform as well. Cool. Looks like we have a quorum, so I'm going to jump in and share my screen and we can get started. Cool. So I hope everyone doesn't mind that I'm in dark mode today. Recently switched to the dark side, so loving that. So this is today's market page, which we just landed on. Good note here that if you ever see a chart inside of Koyfin, you'll see this little button up here, which is kind of like an up to the right arrow. This is actually going to pop you right into the chart tool, and it will kind of base the chart on the thing that you're looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and we'll jump into the chart tool. So there's a few different types of charts in Koyfin, and we actually have one that's in beta at the moment to be a fourth one, and I'll give you a glimpse of that in just a second. And I'm sure Rob will share the link to that as well to let you play around with it. We'll touch on that in just a second. Historical graph is kind of like the meat and potatoes, or the Swiss Army knife, whatever analogy you want to use. It's kind of the most comprehensive chart tool we have. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that, and I guess it can be quite perplexing at first, which is kind of the barrier we're trying to break down today. And the other two charts, we recognize that some people just want a smoother kind of creation flow for whatever it is they're doing. So we built intraday and performance charts just to do one specific task really well. So we'll cover those briefly, but the crux of, or the most time we're going to spend in this webinar is going to be on historical graph, because it's obviously the most customizable. We'll walk through some of the basics as to kind of what all these little buttons and doodads are around here as well. And then we'll start adding in data and comparing securities and doing all that stuff as well. So we'll quickly just kind of break down these chart types, and then we'll come back to historical graph. So the intraday chart, it does one thing, and it does one thing really well. It shows you intraday data. So we are intraday right now, so we can see the SPY here, or the SPX, or I could change that to Chipotle if I wanted to, and we'll just kind of show you the live price as it ticks away. And you have from 1 to 10 days there, and we break that out. And you can, if you go over on the right-hand side here, there's a bunch of other buttons that we're going to discuss in just a sec, but I'll just cover the core functionality of these charts. So if you go over to the right-hand side here and you right-click, you'll be able to change this from a percentage, or you can turn it into a number. You can turn it into log or linear as well. And you can change the range of the axis as well. For me, I like the percentage, particularly if you're going to be comparing a bunch of securities. Go over to the left-hand side here, punch in a security, add it to the chart pretty nicely there. And if you see here on the data series, we're going to be doing this a lot throughout the video, so we'll just cover it here quickly. There's a little tachograph option button here. Whenever you click on that, it's going to give you the option to customize whatever data series or security you're filtered on. So for the intraday, the data series and the security are kind of the same thing. That will make more sense in just a minute. But I can go in here and I can change the Starbucks line to green if I want. I can make it thick so it shows up clearer. I can make it dashed, thin. There's a lot of stuff you could do with that. And you probably wouldn't want to do this for an intraday chart, but you can also change the structure of the chart, whether it's a bar chart or an area as well. We'll be covering that a bit more shortly. So that's the intraday chart. The performance chart, It's similar, but it has a few other components to it. So it has a longer time range for one. It's not really focused on intraday. If I want to show Chipotle's CAGR over a long period of time, I can see here 20 years compounded at about 25% a year. Really, really nice there. If I want to pull up Starbucks, I can chuck that in there as well and see the CAGR. Starbucks is compounded quite nicely, but it's just been destroyed by Chipotle. This is super useful if you just want to quickly compare the performance of a number of securities. It could be equities, funds, ETFs, what have you. That's the crux of the performance chart. And then just before we jump into historical graph, this is the fundamental chart named TBC. This is something we've been working on for the past little while, and it really simplifies another kind of flow in the historical chart as well, which will become more obvious as we walk through some examples. So let's quickly show you what the historical chart looks like for kind of context. So here you can see I've got Chipotle and I'm showing the drawdown for peak. If I wanted to then add another security, I'd have to find a security and then it replicates the data series. And if you want to add more data series, you have to add them and change the colors. And that's totally fine for some workflows, but sometimes people want to just grab a bunch of securities and compare them with one metric. So in the fundamental chart that we have here, you can see I've selected 4 securities and I'm just quickly showing price to earnings. And the beauty of this is if I wanted to then just slap, say, EV to EBIT in there as well, it's going to pull it up into a separate panel. We'll go to the next 12 months. And all the colors and everything are already coded to the security, and it just kind of takes away like the extra 20 seconds that we'd have to do configuring that. So really great there. And it splits it into 2 panels nicely as well, so you can, adjust them at your leisure. But that's kind of what we're building, and we should have it in the product, I want to say next week. So yeah, if Rob shared the link, jump in, play around with it, let us know what you think. Some disclosure, we might change this because it is in beta. It might break because it's in beta, but please let us know what you think. So now with that out of the way, we can jump into the historical chart. So the historical chart is where we'll be focusing most of our time today. And before we jump in, I'm just going to walk around what all these little buttons do around here. So let's start here on the left-hand side. You can see this is the panel where you'll select securities and data series. This is templates, so you can create chart templates. We're going to cover that in detail in just a bit, but it basically allows you to kind of save the views that you like looking at and flick through securities on those views as well. And these templates are the things that you'll be using throughout the platform in things like dashboards or lots of charts or other kind of components to Koyfin. And this is the settings panel as well. So this is going to allow you to change the fonts of everything from the legend, the colors. You can add grids here if you want as well, change background colors, alter labels and, change from log to linear, but we'll come back to that a few times as well. Up here above the chart, you have the time range. So you can pick 1 year, 5 year, 20 years, all. You can also change the frequency as well. And you can pick a custom date here using the calendars. Over here on the right-hand side, if you're showing a data or multiple data series, you can click Show Table, and it will kind of break that out in a table for you as well. You have the Share button here. So if I want to share this chart to a friend, for example, I can click Share, and we give you the ability to just take it as it is, like that. You can copy it. You can get a link for it. You can embed it somewhere, or you can share it to Twitter or download a PNG. If you want to do things like add custom logos, you have the ability to do that as well. You can change the dimensions. So I have this set up to be a bit more of a square, but you can change it into a rectangle if you want. You can add titles to it and change the font size of that too. You can come in here and change the axis styling, so you can make the labels on the side bigger. You can add a grid there and change the color. So you've got something like that. And you can come in here and change all the other things as well. So this is the legend. I would usually make that 20. I'd probably get rid of the price because it's duplicated. You get the idea. And then when you've got what you want, you click done, and you can download it, copy it, embed it, all that good stuff. Up here, if you're filtered on security, maybe you're doing technical analysis or something like that, and you think this is an interesting prospect, you can click Add to Watch List, and here's all your watch lists that you have, and you can choose to add them to those. You have a notes button here as well. I don't think I have any notes on Chipotle, so let's see. Do I have notes on Apple? So if I'm filtered on Apple and I notice some kind of technical trend that I'm interested in, or if I'm studying something fundamentally and I think it's interesting, I could go to notes. You'll see that this is already annotated. And the notes feature, in my opinion, is really underrated because these notes kind of follow the security wherever it goes. If you're in a watch list and you hover over the notes icon and you've just read a conference call, you can kind of update your notes in there as well. Although I've not got any serious notes for Apple, I do use this notes feature quite often, and it's really great. Up here you have the quote box. So you see all this data kind of above the chart. You can see sector, industry, market caps, and returns data there as well. You actually have the ability to change these data sets that come up here. So you can just drag them around, but you can also include and exclude certain items. So if you want the forward peg ratio or trailing price to book, dividend yield, there's a bunch of stuff in here. You can just select those, drag them around, and include them in your quote box. On the right-hand side here, we kind of showed it in intraday, but this is going to give you some settings in the chart as well. So if I right-click here, you're going to have the ability to change the scale type from log to linear, which can also be done in that settings panel there as well. You can change the ranges of the chart. So if you want something that's a bit tighter, for example, you can, well, maybe not do that, but you can kind of shorten the length and of the chart there, and group axis as well. So let's take a couple data sets so this would make sense for. So let's take price to earnings for Apple. If I'm flying through some stuff, don't worry, we'll be covering kind of data selection in just a sec. And if this was grouped for whatever reason, ungrouped, you'd have two separate axes here. And sometimes it makes sense to look at data on two separate axes. But if we're just looking at two P ratios of two companies, and the chart shows it like this, what we can do is right click and then group those axes so we can see them on the kind of same pane. And down here, a few other things. We have adjusted. So you can toggle this to kind of change the price, whether it's adjusted or unadjusted for dividends. You have a button here that will remove the crosshair. So you can see I've got a crosshair here. You can change the styling of the crosshair in settings as well. This button will remove that. You can add grid lines here using this button, and then this little button here removes the labels from your chart like that. And down here is a bunch of annotation tools. So you can add things like circles. You can change the color of those circles. You can duplicate them. You've got this kind of like skipping rope type thing. You have squares, you have Fibonacci. Again, something I don't know how to use. You have arrows here, and each of these will have a slightly different setting. So whether it's like color or weighting, or you can turn it into kind of like a dashed arrow if you want, or a big fat dashed arrow, and you can kind of move those around your chart. You have a text box here as well, which you can change the colors of and move around, and the font size. These little labels, if you hover over a piece of data there and drag it up, it will kind of pinpoint that data series that you're looking at. And you have a bunch of different lines, horizontal, vertical, things like that. And you have a channel button here as well. So if I take this channel, drag it up, change the color of it for technical purposes. And this little button here, which is a trash can, is just going to remove all this clutter from your screen to make space for my favorite annotation tool, which is just a pen that allows you to draw all over the screen. Cool. And then you have back, redo, and kind of undo buttons there as well. So that's kind of all the little buttons around the side, and now we can kind of move into, how do you actually use these charts? So the first thing we might want to do is just focus on the data series. So let's go ahead and remove Chipotle here. We'll jump into kind of comparisons between two securities in just a sec. But your data series, we include everything. If you're used to using Koyfin, there's thousands of data sets, stuff that you'll be used to seeing in the screener and on watch lists. You've got market data, like price and information and some technical indicators there. You've got everything that you would find in the financials. You've got valuations, multiples, margins, ratios. You've got analyst estimates here as well. And anytime you're filtered on a specific asset, whether it's an equity, an ETF, mutual fund, you'll have asset-specific items there as well. So for equities, you've got things like, let me change the time period there and get rid of this. You've got things like forward estimates versus actuals. You might want to like overlay a price on that, like this. There we go. So you can kind of see like every time that Apple's reported EBIT, here's what they did versus what the market thought they did. But we'll start with something a bit more simple here. So let's just type in revenue. If you're unsure of where to find something, you can just have a little bash at typing it in on the search box here, and it's likely it'll pop up. So we've got total revenues here, up at trailing 12 months here. I'll just kind of give you an idea of stuff that you can build here and visualize. So you see that initially we're showing you this as a line chart, which is great. First thing, I don't like having log, so I'm going to change that to linear. Each data series has kind of a variety of ways that it could be customized, and I'll walk you through different kinds of data series and how you can customize them. I should have probably started with price here actually, because that's one of the most unique ones. So we'll show you price first. So you can see here that we're showing it as candles. And if I click in here, price graph is one of the more unique ones because it has 6 different options for chart type. So we can show this as a line. We can show this as, I always forget what this one is called, OHLC. We've got candles here. We've got bar, hollow candles, and we've got kind of bar chart. Because there's so many data series in there, it looks like an area chart, but this is supposed to be a bar chart. And here's an area chart as well. Obviously, you have the styling, so you can change the colors of all of these things. If you are on something like a bar chart, for example, a candle chart, and we go to a shorter time range so you can see it, I can go into settings and I can kind of change the color for the direction. So if I want it to go up, that'll be green, and down. I don't know why you'd have it anything other than red, but you can change it to white if you want. And you have various options there. For historical chart, you have a volume overlay as well. So I can show that in notional or shares. I'm personally more used to notional. And again, you can change the colors of those up and down indicators as well. And let's just go and remove those. And we also have something here called statistical bands, which we'll jump into just shortly. But this is going to allow you to add things like means, standard deviations, medians, lows, highs. Highs and lows might be useful for this one, but yeah, you can do a lot of stuff here. But we'll be jumping into an example of that in just a sec. So in terms of like a fundamental view, we'll go back to the revenue thing that we were building earlier. There's a few things that we can do here. So number one, like we showed you with the candles, you can change this to a bar chart if you want. You can change the color of it, and you also have an option here to match the color label on the axis with the data being shown in the middle. And you can see here that we have some options down here. We can change the financial periods to quarterly or yearly based on our preference. And we had statistical bands last time, but something we didn't have for the historical chart is the transformation. So I'll probably say this a few times, but every data series has slightly different customizable components to it. And a lot of the fundamental data series, you can transform those. So what I mean by that is you can show it as year-over-year growth as a percentage. You can show it as a number. You can show quarter over quarter. You can show performance, which is kind of like the rate of change. You can show cumulative drawdowns. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. If I have the revenue metric here, for example, I can just click year-over-year growth, and probably don't want that to be blue on the way up. We'll change the up to green. And now we can kind of see the year-over-year growth of Apple as opposed to just the revenue over time. And something interesting here as well. So if I've got total revenues here, and I want to see it like this, but I also want to see the year over growth, I can just type in the same metric, which is total revenues, trailing 12 months. And initially, Koyfin is going to think, oh, you want to show these on the same panel. We obviously don't want to do that. And if you hover up to the legend here, you can see these little buttons here. These are merge buttons. So you can actually just delete the data series off the chart by pressing this X. But if you want to open this into a new panel, the plus button will allow you to do that. And obviously, when you've got separate panels, more than one, you have the ability to merge them back together or push them around the screen. But if I've got revenue up here, I might want to change the secondary total revenues to show year-over-year growth and turn it into a bar chart. So now I've got like the revenue on top and I've got the year-over-year growth trend down the bottom, and it's kind of like two ways of visualizing the same data. So for statistical bands, we'll jump into a different metrics. It's probably not as useful to see mean revenues over time. I want to look at the price to earnings, so I'm going to type in PE. I want to look at that on a forward basis, and here we go. If I want to add some statistical bands to this, I'm interested in focusing on a 10-year time horizon with Apple. Again, I want that to be linear, and I want to show the mean over time. I'm going to come back into the the settings, and I'm going to go to statistical bands, and I want to see the mean, and I want to see one standard deviation either side as well. And these additional data series tacked on or statistical bands, they can also be customized as well. So if I want to show the mean in green, I can do that. I can make it thick. I can make it a solid line. You get the point. You can kind of transform it. So here I can see very quickly that Apple's trading at 30 times forward earnings. The mean of the last decade has been 19. Over the last 5, it's been 25. But you can see Apple's historically expensive here. There are a number of ways that you can figure that out in Koyfin pretty easily. The percentile rank snapshot is one of them, but the chart is also a great way to do it as well. So as another example of a data series that you can kind of customize in a slightly different way, I'm not personally much of a technician, but a lot of our technical indicators will have really unique ways of being customized. So let's pull up a price chart here for Apple, and we'll just pop the RSI down into a separate panel. So here is Apple. Here is a line chart. We'll put a volume overlay there as well. And we got the RSI here. If I click into the settings, the only options we give you are the ability to kind of change the color of the RSI line there. And I don't know why you'd want to, but if you do want to, you can change the upper and lower bounds of RSI. So I'm going to make mine a little bit tighter there. And you can kind of remove that panel and kind of zoom in and change the time frame and stuff like that. I think if you went to the stochastic oscillator, which is a mouthful to say, you have similar kind of customizations there as well. And the next thing I want to show you is, I guess, comparing. So we've covered kind of the basics there, and then we want to compare multiple securities. So we'll change the security type for this. So let's think about some luxury companies here. We'll take Caring. You might notice that this same chart template will pop up every time I put on a new security. That's because I have a template saved. This is like the first thing I like to see when I open up a new security. We'll be showing you how to make those in just a sec. But let's say we've got Caring here, and we want to look at the forward PE, which is there, and we want to make that green because I think Caring is green. And we'll look at some other luxury securities as well. How we do that is we take the data series, anything that we have in the data series for the security we have selected. When we pick a new security, it's going to duplicate that. So it will show the price to earnings of whatever security that I'm interested in. So let's look at Louis Vuitton. We'll pull that in there. And then also let's look at Burberry. And we could also pull in Hermes as well. This one. So very quickly, we've just like pulled up all the securities and we can compare them across the PE. You'll probably see as we kind of venture a bit more into this comparative stuff, why you'll see the value of the fundamental chart because it just does all this stuff so much quicker. Like you'll see all I had to do is put in 4 securities and then just pick one data series. Here it's a bit more work, but I guess that's why we've built the fundamental chart to kind of take some of that work away from you. Another thing that you might want to compare as well. So price to earnings is pretty simple. It's just, it's one metric. They're all line charts. If you're in the same sector, there's probably not going to be a ridiculous deviation between the kind of norms. Well, here you've got like the Hermes premium, which is held consistently strong over the last decade. But if we're looking at something like revenues and EBIT, we might want to compare those in a slightly different style. So let's take Amazon, for example. I'm going to filter for Amazon. And I want to compare Amazon's, let's say, revenue and EBIT with, let's say, Walmart over the last decade. So I've got revenue here, and I've got EBIT, and we'll take them both over a trailing basis. And it's nicely popped those into 2 separate panes for me, which is good because that's how I wanted to view it. I don't really want to view these as line charts, though. I want to view them as bar charts. So I'm going to change them to the color of Amazon, which I believe is yellow. I can also change the EBIT color to yellow as well. And like while you see me doing this, you'll appreciate the fundamental chart because you just don't have to change colors in fundamental chart. So we'll change that to a bar chart as well. And now I've got both those things lined up. And when we punch in Walmart, it's going to basically slide in the Walmart data for revenue and EBIT in the same panels, but it won't be color coded again, which is the benefit of using fundamental chart when that's released. And I'm going to change Walmart to green here just so we can see it a little bit better. So if you're comparing fundamental data series, you can really get a bit creative. You don't just have to use line charts. You can use bar charts to represent this stuff as well. So you can see very quickly, I've just pulled up a chart showing, Walmart and Amazon's growth over the last decade. You can see that Amazon's EBIT is just kind of at the same level as Walmart now as well. And the revenue is slowly catching up, should maybe overtake it in the next few years. And if you like that view, you can save that as a template as well. But before we kind of jump into templates, we've been talking a lot about equities. There's a lot of data in here for equities. We've already kind of covered that, but you can also use ETFs, so specific data series for them, and there's macro as well. I know a lot of you are probably fundamental focused, so you're not overly focused on macro, but just to kind of show you a little bit of that as well. If I'm interested in the United States inflation rate, I can pick that and pop it on the chart here, below over the last 10 years. If I want to then show the United States core inflation rate, I can pop that on the chart as well, or I can take a number of the G7 countries and compare the headline and core inflation rate over time. Pretty simply, we have a lot of macro data on the platform, and one of the awkward things we have in I guess the search function is a lot of these economic terms have really specific names or tickers. Just a quick segue, if for those that are kind of interested in looking at a lot of the macro data, if you go to advanced search and you go to security search, this allows you to search the entire library of Koyfin securities. So if I'm interested in macro data series related to fish, for example, I could type fish in here. And if I go to the asset category, I can pull up economic. And if I just want US, I can go to the country filter and type in US here and then search. And here we're just going to output all of the different fish related economic data series that we have. And if I want to just click on those and pull them into the chart, I can do so as well. So fish aside, let's get back into the charting tool. So we covered a bit of equities and kind of how you can compare fundamentals. We showed you a bit of macro data as well, but you can also use any other kind of asset classes we have here as well. So if I go for the SPY, for example, I can see that that's just going to pull up that chart template for me there, but maybe I don't want to look at price. I'm more interested in AUM. The asset specific line items that we have here will change because we're filtered on an ETF. I can go ahead and pull up assets under management, for example. I can turn that into an area chart if I wanted to, make that thick, make that orange. And I might also want to pull up the price to earnings for the S&P, and I might also want something like flows, cumulative flows down here on the bottom as well. So yeah, you can build views kind of depending on whatever it is you're looking at. And this kind of segues into the next section which is you probably don't want to be replicating the same view over and over again. Like if you have a set way of looking at either stocks from a technical perspective or a fundamental perspective, you can build chart templates to kind of save you having to replicate that work. So if I type in an equity here, let's go to Burberry. I was looking at Burberry earlier today and I created a chart template for it, and they're all saved in here. You can ignore the name, but basically I just wanted to quickly get a sense of how much Burberry's revenues have been growing over time, and the margins there as well. So this was just a quick kind of snapshot fundamental view that I created for Burberry, and I didn't have to recreate it. I've already created it once. And if I wanted to then look at the same view, but for Chipotle, I could just search for Chipotle and it's not going to erase anything that I've already built. It's just going to slap that chart template onto Chipotle. So the way to do this is, let's say this is your template. I'll delete something so it allows me to save it as new. Let's say this is the way you want to look at securities. When you've built the view that you want in the chart tool, go up here and click save. You'll save as, and then you give it a name. I'm not going to save this one because I already have a bustling library of chart templates, but you would click save new. And then every time you comment your chart templates here, and there's other areas in Koyfin you can use this as well, which we'll kind of cover. you can see your chart templates in here, so you can quickly just pull those up and view them. If you had this PE versus mean, you could just pull that up very quickly. So some of the chart templates that I've created, you probably have an idea in mind of things that you might want to create, but we do have a library for you as well. So if you go up here into my templates and hit new, maybe you don't have a library of chart templates yet, we give you some inspiration. And this might also help you kind of understand the range of data that we have inside of the platform as well. So we have like rolling 3-year, 5-year, 10-year returns here. That's a template. We kind of build that for you because I'm on dark mode. Probably have to change this to white. So we kind of build that dashboard for you, and then you could, save that template. I think these already pre-save as a template, so you should have that in your library when you save it. Or we could go into another one. Let's look at something interesting. Correlation, beta, and volatility. And again, I'll probably have to change that color. So yeah, you can flick through the library that we give you for some inspiration, and then also it'll probably help you understand the range of the data that we have here as well, because it is pretty vast. And I think that about covers it for chart templates, but there's a few things that I want to show you now, given that we know how to create a chart template. What order? Yeah, I guess the first thing I want to show you actually is a good hack for a chart template. So I'm on Chipotle here. If you've been for our snapshots or kind of, you'll see a bunch of the charts that we kind of create for you in Koyfin. So this one is an earnings history snapshot, for example. And it's one that I like to use a lot. And what this is basically showing us here is for Chipotle, this is every quarter that they've reported sales. You can change the factor in here as well. Every quarter they've reported sales, and overlaid is the price. And when I hover over each of these little balls, it's going to show me the actual, the estimate, the surprise, the beat, and the highs and the lows. It's super informative, and it gives you a quick snapshot of, hey, how often do Chipotle beat expectations for sales? If you like this and you don't necessarily know how to replicate it in Koyfin, like I said at the beginning, if you come up here and press this upwards arrow, this is going to pull you into the chart, and it's kind of like a hacky way to steal a chart template from Koyfin. So it's already built for you. You can change the colors and add additional data series to it if you want, but you can just now save this as kind of like a ready-made chart template. So if you ever see something in Koyfin you want to just kind of snatch, you can do that. And I think we have stuff like that in analyst estimates as well. You'll see that we show you the trends over time, and this actually utilizes our forward estimate data, and you can just, again, pop that into the chart template and then save that. So there's a few areas, and there's probably some other questions in the Q&A at the end that you might ask me to kind of demonstrate. We can jump into those as well, but just in the interest of time, there's areas that you can use the chart templates that kind of, besides the chart tool, that are super useful. So the first one here as an example, if we go to the overview snapshot, for example, I think the default chart we show you in here is something like this. It's just a pretty simple performance chart, and you have a range there. But if you're looking at these snapshots and you prefer seeing a slightly different view, like that price chart I had with the drawdown, you can throw your chart templates in there. If you come over to the analytics page, we have a feature called lots of charts, which again, I actually use chart templates here. So I think the default we give you is normalized performance. So if I'm put on a watch list that I have, or the S&P, whatever it might be, this tool allows you to quickly flick through a number of charts based on whatever template you've slapped on it. This one is just performance, and you can change the sorting of the lots of charts by kind of performance or market cap, and you can also increase and decrease the number of charts you see in there. But the good thing about this one is you can again utilize those those chart templates as well. So if you remember that one that we created, which was PE versus mean, I can quickly see that if I have a smaller basket of stocks, like this one, for example, there's a bunch of companies that I'm looking at currently. I can quickly see the PE versus mean for all the securities that I'm interested in, or I might be interested in that price chart with the drawdown. Really useful. I use this one quite a lot when I've kind of not been paying attention to markets for a couple of days, just to kind of catch me up. I usually just like shorten the time range and then see, what's been moving. And the biggest, kind of most customizable, biggest value add space, in my opinion anyway, that you can use these chart templates is the My Dashboards, or custom dashboards, as some people like to call it. So the dashboards that we have here, the market dashboards, are kind of these preset ones that we give you to kind of inform you about stuff that's going on in the markets across, global yields, IPOs, currencies, corporate credit spreads, and what have you. It's also to give you a bit of inspiration as to kind of what you can do in Koyfin. Again, you can pull any of these charts into the chart tool, and the My Dashboard section is where you can kind of construct your own view. So we'll walk through a couple of examples just to kind of give you an idea, and then we'll kind of construct a basic one, and then we can kind of jump into Q&A as well. So this dashboard that I created is an ETF view, and every chart you see in here is a chart template that I've created and then kind of pulled into this dashboard. So here we just have a watch list full of ETFs. Here you can see the PE versus mean, that chart template. And then here we have a bunch of different flows, whether it's weekly, quarterly, monthly. And then we have cumulative here with some AUM. Here is a macro dashboard. It's really just to look at the credit default rate in the US and the change over time. And if at any point you want to kind of pull these up into full screen, you can do so, and you can minimize those and play around with them. Here is one that is inflation related. So this is a watch list that I built for kind of global headline and core inflation rates. And every time I flick through these, it's going to add or remove them from the chart. This is a ratings and price target dashboard. Literally both of these chart templates, I just kind of showed you that hack. I just pulled them from the snapshots that we have in the analyst estimate tab for analyst ratings and price targets. And then I saved them as templates and pulled them into here. So every time I walk through this watch list now, it's going to change that view for me. And what other ones do we have? This is a fundamental view. So a bunch of securities here, forward earnings multiples. We've got some forward estimates, balance sheet items, margins, and a price chart. There's really a lot of stuff you can do here. And you can build the view that you want. So I'll show you quickly how to kind of construct one of those. So when you're creating a new dashboard, you'll have a few options. We obviously give you a few different options to have kind of multiple graphs or watch lists and multiple graphs. But for the purpose of this, we'll go with a blank one. We give you a bunch of components. I think off the top of my head, you can fit 8 charts in here if you squeeze them down. And you can utilize watch lists, intraday, performance, historical, and then we also have news and scatter plot tabs here as well. I always say that dashboards are like blending the powers of watch lists and charts together, but you don't actually need to use watch lists in here. So we'll start off with a chart first of all. So we have a chart here, and it's not connected to anything, and you know what I mean by connected to anything in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and type in Chipotle here in the bottom left, and it's going to pull up a price chart. And up here in the top drop down, I have a few options. I can change that to performance if I want. I have all the kind of chart customizability of changing the time range that you'd be used to. If I want to add another security in here, for example, I can click this little colon button here and filter for multiple securities. And now I can add, let's see, Starbucks. And now I can show, multiple securities on that chart as well. That's great. But I might want to add a chart template in here as well. So let's go to single securities again. We'll just focus on Chipotle. Similar to what I showed you earlier, you can just pull up some chart templates. So here is one for purchases over time. And we'll change the time range there. I don't think Chipotle is too heavy on the repurchases, but yeah, we can see over like a decade or 15 years, they've eaten up about 15% of their share count. This is all good, but I personally think custom dashboards work really well when you add a watch list to them. So we're gonna do that and show you kind of the benefit of doing that as well. So here I've pulled in a watch list full of securities, and you'll see how here on the top of each of these they have an A. If I click into that, there's options for B, C, D, and what have you. When a watch list has the same lettering as a chart, it means they communicate with each other. So you can see here, if I click on Google, this data is going to change to be Google's data. If I click on Meta, this data is going to change to be kind of focused on Meta. And if we pull up a simpler chart here, just a price chart for performance. If I want to show multiple charts in here, again, I can go to the settings here with the little dots on the bottom. I can change this to multiple securities. And now every time that I click another one, it's going to add the second one in here as well. We probably don't want to show that for performance, share purchases. But yeah, every time now I go down this list, it's going to add a bunch of those there. And we'll show you what it looks like if you pile up a bunch of different views. So if I'm constructing like a daily dashboard view that I might want to look at for a portfolio, for example, I might want a little bit of news in there. So we can pull in a news feed there for this watch list. And I might also want 4 different chart views I'm interested in. So let's change this to a single security, make it this size. This one, we might just want a basic performance chart, or we might want to use that one that I showed earlier, which has the drawdowns and the share price change. So we've got that there. We might want another chart up here, which shows something slightly different. Let's see what we have in the chart library. We might want some technical indicators in there. We might want to throw in a third chart here. Actually, let's make a big long chart. And if I can remember the name of the template that I created a few weeks ago, we can find it. So here we go. So like that chart template that we kind of stole from the earnings snapshot, we can pull that in here and drag it along so we can have a view. And every time I'm looking through the securities, it's going to change the view for me. So there's a bunch of stuff you can do in here. You can have kind of macro related things. You can have kind of technical, equity focused ETF. There's really a lot of customizability in here. We don't quite have the time to like walk through a full masterclass of how to get the best out of custom dashboards, but we do have a custom dashboard masterclass over on our YouTube channel. If Rob could find that and drop the link in as well, that would be great into the chat. I think that's the crux of what I wanted to cover. We did walk from kind of 0 to 1 in the charting. I'm sure there's some questions, so I might just jump into the Q&A and see if we have any of those. Is there a heat map function? Jim asks, and oh, that one's been answered. Well, the answer to your question, Jim, is we don't have a heat map function. It's something we've talked about. It's quite a fun use case, but we don't have that directly now. The only thing we have that's remotely similar is kind of the one-day performance little heat map we have on US equity factors here on today's market, but I'm pretty sure that's not what you were asking. We are in the Q&A section, by the way, so if anyone does have any questions, feel free to send them in. Would there be a way to calculate EV to EBITDA for all years where EBITDA is available and make available for graphs and scatter plot? Yeah, so let's just jump in and show you. We'll go to historical. Let's say we want Chipotle. Like we have a really big range of valuation metrics in here. If you're not sure if we have it, go to financials, go to valuation, and you'll see a lot of them here. But EV to EBITDA is a pretty common one. So I can take EV to EBITDA here. We'll take the next 12 months. We'll pull it over 10 years. So I can quickly pull up the EV to EBITDA there as well. And you asked, is it available in the scatter plot? Yes. So for those who don't know, the scatter plot is this tool and it's in analytics. It's super powerful for like arranging and sorting through big data sets. So let's go to the S&P 500, for example. I might want to show the relationship on X and Y basis, the PE versus the price to sales for all the companies in the S&P. And on the X-axis here, I might search for EV to EBITDA. You find there's a lot of continuity in the data picker with whatever tool you're using. If it's available in one tool, it's pretty likely it's going to be available in another one. If I look for EV to EBITDA, we can take the next 12 months here. And because it's a big data set, it might take a second to load, and we can kind of see that relationship in the S&P between high EV to EBITDA to high price to earnings. So yeah, this is available in Market Scatter. It's available in the charting tool. It's also available in chart templates as well if you want to look for EV to EBITDA and pull that up over a period of time as well. Is there a way to increase on-demand speed of chart, specifically if you're watching an intraday chart for movement? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. I don't know if I'm wrong here, but if you're referring to like the intervals of like having like minute ticks and stuff like that, if you could send a follow-up question just to kind of clarify what you mean, I'll be able to help you out there. But oh, Rob's typing away. He probably knows. Yosef, can I have the charts that I created in? Okay, that one's disappeared. Cool.
Sorry, if I type an answer, it goes into the answered. I think what you're asking for is like second or 5 second or 10 second intervals on chart, and unfortunately we don't have that. The intraday chart is like Connor said, 1 minute.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rob. Yusuf says, can I have the charts that I created in my dashboard available in the Koyfin app? So the short answer is no. The Koyfin web app is very dense, very wide and deep, and there's a lot of stuff you can do in it. The Koyfin mobile app, iOS or Android, right now it's more of a companion, so it will suck in your watch lists, and all the watch lists you create, it'll have that data there. But we've recently updated the chart kind of library in the app, but it's not as advanced as you would have in the web app. You can't create a chart template in Koyfin Web and then pull it over into the mobile app. That would be very cool, and hopefully we have that someday, but it's not on the immediate term roadmap. So cool.
Connor, I'm gonna post a quite really important question that we got into the chat.
Yeah.
Where is it? This question comes to us from Adam Silverman. I don't know if you see it in the chat.
No, I don't. I don't see it.
Okay.
Oh, will you share a link to where Connor purchased this sweater? That's sweet. I don't know if there's any international. I don't know if you have H&M in the US, but I just picked this up from H&M. It's a wool sweater, so yeah.
As we call it, H&M in the US.
H&M, yeah. So H&M, most important question of the day. Zach asks, will full financials be available in the mobile app soon? So we're actually working on something for mobile app. It's called Detailed View. For users of the mobile app or those who aren't, it's a companion app. The watch list right now will show you some kind of price data, but in terms of like pulling out fundamentals, the mobile app is not as advanced, but we are actually building a detailed view, which will allow you to have more of a watch list setup that you're used to looking at in Koyfin Web. So right now, no, but hopefully very soon you'll be able to look at financials and more kind of breadth of data in the mobile app pretty soon. And just while we're on that point, if anyone uses iPad, although we do have an iPad app, I think using web on iPad is also really great as well. I usually have it sitting open during the day. There's like a third screen, just a personal preference for me. Bruce says, thanks. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate you coming. Ryan, not a question, just a comment. This is a wonderful walkthrough. Thank you. We'd love webinars like this. Yeah, we plan to do more webinars like this, ideally on a monthly basis. And we'll be uploading these as well and sending you a copy of it for kind of coming back to. So appreciate all the kind words there. We do have a little bit extra time. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, there was a question that someone asked about. I know you covered it, but maybe you could show again, just overlaying maybe a fundamental data point like Apple revenue versus like CPI, how you would do that. So like a macro data point versus like a fundamental data point.
Yeah, we can do that. So we'll jump into historical. I think you said.
Oh, sorry. Bruce is now. Bruce, no. I asked if you can overlay macro data on company specific data. Isn't that kind of like what I
yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple that's actually reminded me of something that I didn't show as well. So number one, Bruce, yes, you can do that. So if I'm looking at revenue here for Apple, let's show it like that. And I wanted to look at United States inflation rate. We can, oh yeah. So the first thing you'll see there, because Koyfin thinks that you want to show the revenues of the United States inflation rate, it'll tell you, it doesn't have revenues, so you have to pick the data series, which is going to be price. So you can overlay the inflation rate in the US with Apple revenues and pull that up over time as well. and you can kind of configure it if you want it to be linear or log. There's no limitation on plotting macro data over fundamental data. Just make sure that you're picking the right data series for the macro data, which most often is going to be a price chart to show you the figure. The second thing I wanted to just quickly cover is another form of comparison I forgot to mention. So we have relative tickers here as well. So if I wanted to look at like the QQQ versus the SPY over time, when I'm searching for QQQ, if I put a colon or a semicolon, I can never remember which one that is. And I type in my second ticker and pick it, we're going to show you that relationship in a chart. And this one is pretty interesting. If you pull up like 20 years, you can see that up here, this is when QQQ is outperforming in the bubble, the tech bubble. And then, for the next few years, it was just carnage. And then since about 2002 or the bottom, the NASDAQ's been outperforming. So you can do a lot of stuff here. You can also do stuff that just doesn't make sense. Like you could show a relative chart of McDonald's revenue over Starbucks's EBIT. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but like it's that customizable that you can show relative charts like that. So we'll go there. Dan says, how can you build a scatter chart like EV to revenue versus forward revenue growth with a custom list of equities? I can see Rob's typing an answer there, but this might be a fun one to just kind of quickly show you if I remember what you wrote. EV to revenue, forward revenue growth. Okay, so a custom list of equities is essentially just going to be a watch list there. So I don't have many interesting watch lists in here, but let's say this S&P, this is actually a custom watch list. It's the S&P minus financials. Don't ask me why I have that, but if I want to pull in the S&P minus financials here, which is essentially a custom list of securities, I'm going to take the EV to sales, and we'll go next 12 months. And then if I want analyst estimates here, you can type this stuff in, or you can look for it. If I'm looking for forward estimates is going to be the number, so the dollar value. Forward growth is going to be the rate of change. So let's look at what is interesting. Let's look at EBIT or EPS estimate year-over-year change as a percentage. And I just want to explain these briefly because sometimes people reach out and they ask me what this means. So for forward estimates, the nomenclature we use is kind of like first unreported fiscal year or first unreported fiscal quarter. What that essentially means is like the next whatever it is you're looking at that has not been reported. So if we're looking at Apple and they've reported Q3 revenues, FY1E is going to be the full figure for 2024. FY2E is going to be 2025 and so on. So if we pick 2024 estimate EPS growth for 2023 versus EV to sales, we can punch that in there. And it loads up like this. So we can see across here on the x-axis EV to sales, up here on the y-axis we can see the rate of growth. So Nvidia for this year is expected to grow, a good jillion%, and it trades at 14 forward sales on an EV basis. So that answers that question. Create an inflation-adjusted chart of SPX gold or other instruments. Inflation-adjusted charts. I always feel like Rob, do you remember? I want to say no, but I feel like there's like some weird hacky way of doing it that I'm not remembering. But
There's always a weird and hacky way of doing it on Koyfin. If you take the GDP series from either search for it or take it from Fred, and so if you do and then do the ratio of the SPX versus the series, so that would be kind of, so you would actually need it's not the year on year. You would actually need like if you go to Google and you type in US GDP, and it's actually like the nominal value. So that's so it's just GDP.
Oh, okay, that's the ticker.
That's the ticker's GDP, and so if you do SPX colon GDP, SPX colon GDP, and it's colon not semicolon. SPX colon GDP. No, SPX. SPX.
Why is it doing that? Oh, it's because I'm filtered on econ. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm like, stop. I'm like, that's really annoying. You keep deleting it. SPX, yep. On GDP. I think if you do, yeah. So the problem becomes that GDP is a quarterly series.
Uh,
And so it automatically shows the quarterly data. And I think, yeah, I think we have a longer, there's I think the series that you're using is for some reason starts in 2016. But the answer to your question, sorry, I forgot who asked this now, Boris. The answer to your question is if you take the SPX and you do the ratio of SPX to the nominal GDP, which you could either search for in Koyfin or search for in Fred, and graph that ratio, that would be the inflation adjusted SPX gold or anything else. There is no way to kind of that's the hacky way to do it is the answer.
awesome. We have one last question here. Is there a way to track / graph the change in company guidance? So I got two answers to that. Company specific. So, Starbucks is saying, hey, we're guiding for $500 billion next quarter. We don't actually have that data in-house. It's something we would like, along with a bunch of other data sets. So kind of company specific. We don't have it. You can track the change in analyst estimates over time. So if you come over to, I have to be filtered on a security first. So let's go to Starbucks. If you come over to analyst estimates, you'll see estimates trends, whether it's sales or EPS, whatever it might be. You can pull that up and see how they change over time. And you have that data itemized here as well, or you can pull that into the chart like we showed you earlier. And then you obviously have the kind of the bulk of the data and actuals and consensus as well. But the rate of change will be in estimates trends. And if you want to go on to the chart and you filtered on a security, you go to data series, you can go to analyst estimates, and you can kind of see those there as well. To clarify, Dan, FY1, I can see Rob's answering it.
It's
Okay.
okay. It's
Okay,
probably easier if you.
FY1E year-over-year growth would be estimates for 2023 over 2020 actuals since we're still in Q4. Yeah, so if you're looking at FY1E today, that will show full year 2023 revenue growth relative to the full year 2020. So it's like the annual revenue growth. Obviously that FY1E will change as we progress through time. So in 5 years, it's going to be, I'm not doing the maths in my head, but you get the point. So yeah, that's correct. Cool. I think we're done with questions. Let's just wait a couple of seconds. Yeah, looks like it. Awesome. Well, that does it for today. I appreciate everyone for coming and sticking till the end. We will be sending everyone a recording of this sometime tomorrow morning. So appreciate all the kind words that are coming in as well. Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you next month for the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.